Welcome to the FMCG podcast. Make sure you're following us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us out. Enjoy the show. Hi, my name's Rich and we're Consumer Hub and we focus on helping people in the FMCG sector and consumer sector support their careers with their fantastic jobs with fantastic companies. And this is the FMCG podcast where we speak with the leaders today and hear their advice and expertise on what they're doing in their day job, how they got there in their day job, and also more broadly their FMCG and category expertise. And we are really excited today to be talking all things Soreen and multi with Liz Jacobs from Soreen, the marketing director there, and also Gary Fawcett, who is the executive creative director at TBWA. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're really excited to have you both as guests. Over to you. Can you just give anyone listening just a quick headline on what you both do and how you've got there, if that's all right?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the marketing director at Soreen, as you mentioned. I've been at Soreen for 9 years. I actually started my career on the agency side, so I spent most of my career working in ad agencies. I actually started at TBWA Manchester when it was called BDH back in the day, and I worked at JWT Manchester, but then I decided I wanted to specialise on FMCG brands, and I wanted to kind of actually get more in-depth knowledge on one brand and focus. So I decided to move from the agency side to the client side, and that was 9 years ago. And then since then I've been made marketing director. So I've been marketing director for nearly 3 years, heading up the department for nearly 4 at Soreen. And what my day job involves really is that I oversee all the brand marketing, all the shopper marketing, but also the innovation pipeline and strategy, so any new product development.
Hi, my name's Gary Fawcett, and Liz actually got away from us at one point. She actually worked for us. I'm one half of the executive creative director team at TBWA MCR. I've worked there for 14 years now. I'm also on the management team, but I run the creative output of the agency, overseeing all different types of brilliantly talented creatives, content making teams, concept teams that will actually sit and, take the idea from a brief to its kind of initial thought. We have design teams as well. So all manner of, like I say, brilliantly talented people. And it's my job to make sure our work is just the best and most disruptive that it can be, and it's a brilliant job because you get to work with great brands like Soreen.
Great. Thank you for the intros. That's really interesting. So had you both worked quite closely together before then, agency space?
No, I don't think we'd ever met, had we?
No, never. No.
Cool. I think paths haven't crossed before, so. Yeah, it was fortuitous that when we decided to pitch out the creative, we invited TBWA, and that's how we met.
Yeah,
brilliant. That's really interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm really keen for everyone listening and watching to hear a bit about what's going on at Soreen at the moment and Multi and his mission. Can you give me a quick overview on what Soreen's been up to in the last year and what Multi's been doing, Liz?
Yeah, sure. Soreen's turned 86 years old this year, so It's great to work with a brand with so much history. I think it's really positive that it's a brand that's kind of weathered the storm across such a long period of time. And I think what's interesting is it started out as a kind of fuel for working class Mancunians, and then it became a nationally relevant product over time. And in the 1960s, it was really famous for a memorable TV campaign, which was all about "Where's the Soreen, Doreen?" And people of a certain age still remember it now. If we go out sampling or, we get it on social media. And I think we'd lacked that fame in latter years. And I think we were craving we're a famous brand, but our advertising isn't well known. And actually, we're not as front of mind as we'd like to be. So that was one of the reasons that we looked to create a new brand campaign this year. But I guess the journey of the brand is, like I say, we were known for that kind of big loaf that you cut and you buttered. And then in 2012, we launched lunchbox loaves, and they're individually wrapped 5 smaller products, perfect for obviously lunchboxes for either school children or anyone really. And so I guess we focused on that for a while, and our advertising was mainly talking to parents about school lunchboxes. And then more recently, we launched our Lift bars, and they're targeting kind of like teenagers, young adults. They're a bigger eat, and they've got the vitamin B12 in them, so reduced tiredness and fatigue. And I guess we got to a point where we decided we've got all these different product ranges, this portfolio, but we've not got a master brand campaign that talks to everything. So we need to understand, what does a brand stand for at that kind of top level, and then brief an agency to come up with an idea that really kind of brings it to life.
Great. Really interesting. And you've got Multi, haven't you, as well? He's been out and about, and he's been part of that, yeah.
Yeah, Multi. He obviously represents not just the malt loaf, but the brand, in that his mission is to give everybody in the country, maybe even the world, a squidgy pick me up. That unique property of Soreen itself. We were thinking, if he had a body shape, he would give everyone a big squidgy hug, but it would be far too messy. So he does it via the medium of song instead. He's clearly a massive fan of a certain 80s band. He did want to call himself Malt and Harkett, but we might have got into trouble a little bit if we'd have probably gone that far. And yeah, the mission is just to be there to give people that squidgy pick-me-up whenever they need it most in their day. If they've had a busy one, if they've been exercising, or they just need a little lift to carry on, really. So, preferably with a cuppa as well.
Love that. Yeah, I grew up in Manchester, actually. Yeah, well, Stockport, so northwest, and Soreen. Oh, honestly, it's like it was just a thing growing up. Everyone had it. It's like Sunday tea. We used to do crumpets, and then malt loaf Soreen afterwards with the butter on. And I love the kind of the bars now, the banana flavour. It's great. But you mentioned there about taking the squidge globally, like. Have you ever had any feedback on socials or anyone writing in? Do you know where your furthest flung customers are?
I mean, we do a bit of export. We export to Dubai now, which is quite new. We export to places like Canada, basically where expats live. But we haven't yet managed to kind of take the brand out in a big way beyond the UK. And I think that's because we require quite a lot of advertising investment to educate people on the uniquely squidgy texture.
Yeah.
We did a few focus groups in another country and a while back, and what we found was people thought originally, until they got used to trying it, that it tasted uncooked, because obviously
really? Wow, that's fascinating.
Cake is very aerated, isn't it? And our product is very different. So I think we'd have to do a big education campaign around the squidgy texture to launch into another country, but I wouldn't rule it out in the future.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What I mean, I've got a view on what makes Soreen special to me, because I love it, but what makes the brand and the product so special? Because it is iconic. From your perspectives, what is it that, I don't know, gives it its uniqueness?
I think it is that uniquely squidgy texture. There's no other product tastes like Soreen, we've got IP in that. We're the only people who know how to make it. It's a secret recipe and process. So I think that texture that no other product has, and then also the fact that it's a sweet snack and it tastes kind of wholesome and filling and satisfying and almost like a treat, but it doesn't make you feel guilty because it's actually not bad for you. There's loads of goodness in it. It's healthier than most other snacks. So it's that real sweet spot that very few products can hit, whereby it tastes quite treat-like and really satisfying, but you don't get the guilt with it, and that's our USP, I think, as a brand.
Yeah. I'm going to answer it very similar to the way you did, Rich, and as a consumer. I think if you are from the north of the country, particularly, you're raised on Soreen. It was as commonplace as bread, in your kitchen. Really, it's just a total staple in your life and in your lunchbox. And we were chatting about this the other day. It was almost weird not to have it. You were like, why don't you like it? What,
what's wrong with you?
Part of your life. It's got a lot of love and family attached to it. It's a really strong place in people's hearts. And I think for everyone that we talk to, friends, families, and people in our agency, Vox Pops, all that kind of stuff, it was exactly the same too. And I think because it is a brand that's been passed down really between generations, because it is bloody tasty and it does a good job for the family. So I guess that's a big reason why it is kind of iconic. And I think also growing up, those bright colours in your kitchen, those kind of primary colours, it makes sure that the whole thing really is imprinted on your sort of your head and your heart in a way. So yeah, it's very strong, really. Particularly, like you say, if you're from the north, I wouldn't want to speak for absolutely everybody.
No, definitely. Yeah, if I think about the brands that are iconic in my mind growing up, it's Soreen, Warburton's Thai food, which we're just in the kitchen of like everyone's house in the northwest. This is a bit of a tangent, but debate in our house: are you allowed to put peanut butter on Soreen? It's like, when we do it with the kids, it's always butter or peanut butter. That's what everyone wants to put on. But peanut butter, I like it, and my daughter does. But it's a bit unorthodox. What do you reckon? Is that allowed?
I think it's definitely allowed. Yeah, I think we encourage you to eat it completely, without anything on it, or with butter, or with various toppings. We did a little social media campaign called Try Me Topped, and that kind of suggested all kinds of things. And one of the more unusual combos that people like is cheese. Oof. If you've not tried cheese on malt loaf, you have to try it. It's amazing.
I love it on Christmas cake, so I bet I'd like it on malt loaf. That sounds great. Amazing. What at the moment then? What are the biggest challenges and opportunities for the brand, do you reckon?
I think one of the biggest challenges, and it's basically not just Soreen but all brands, is the cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
So obviously consumers have got a lot less disposable income than they had previously, and one of the ways that they can actually manage the budget is cutting back on groceries. And obviously we're an impulsive product, we're a discretionary product, we're not a meal component. So snacks are something they can cut back on. And I think the other thing during a cost of living crisis is that health becomes less of a priority. People are more motivated by value than health. I mean, luckily we do offer affordable nutrition. We do try to go for some good pricing and deals, but it's still the case that in a cost of living crisis, some people just stop snacking. There's Kantar data that shows there's been a lot less snacking occasions last year than in previous years. So it is one of the ways for people to manage their budget. So yeah, I think that's one of the challenges, and I think the opportunity is, as the cost of living starts to abate, I think health will start to become more of a priority, come back up the agenda, and we are ideally placed there because we've got a product, to my point earlier, where we're a healthier option, but there's no compromise on taste.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What for you both personally, what are you excited about at the moment? Working with Soreen and working with Multi as well as a contributor.
I mean, I love that we're going back to our original personality, that kind of northern charm and sense of humour. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're very warm, and that personality is coming through. It's shining through with the new creative. I think the Multi character really embodies it because he's fun. It's just a really nice way to portray the brand, and that's what we've always stood for, but I'm not sure that it's always been as clear in our advertising consistently over time. So I love the character and I love the soundtrack. I just think it's so Soreen, and it's like you say, we're quite a quirky brand with lots of personality, and that northern charm and sense of humour for me are big components of our personality.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I'd say absolutely massively agree with everything on that. For us, it was just such a thrill. We were almost like Soreen groupies. We were, real fans of it. So, very early on when we were invited to pitch for this business, we were like, we have got to win this. This is really important. And, I'd say probably the really exciting point was the free samples. I think they got munched up very quickly. But no, I'd say, just trying everything Liz has said there, really, trying to find a new space for this brand, was just a really exciting challenge, and hopefully it gives us something to build on. I think we felt like, like Liz was saying there, like an iconic brand like Soreen needed an iconic soundtrack too. So, initially we had lots of ideas for this, for the creative work on as we approached this brief. But I think everybody felt early on that this one felt right. And I think we probably agreed in the early presentations. I think the reactions we got would probably match that. And I think from a creative point of view, we've got lots of other ideas for how it could continue as well. So that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
For me, I think the memorability is really key, because the character is very memorable and the soundtrack kind of implants in your brain, and it's a bit of an earworm. And I think those two things really help people remember the brand.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see you've got more ideas coming out of it, Gary, because I think, if it's feeding that creative process, then it's a good sign, isn't it? if you're excited about it. That's half of the battle, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and you can always tell the really good ideas because the creatives that are working on it very quickly do lots of others, and it makes my job really difficult to choose, really, because I don't want to make all of them, but you have to go through the right kind of rhythm to get relaunch, get it out there. The great thing about Soreen is that there are loads of products as well that you can bring to life. So yeah, it's always good when you hit upon a sort of character that feels right and does grab the personality of the brand and is very creatively rich as well.
Yeah. And just more broadly, I think a lot of people that listen and watch the podcast, they're always really interested in just wider themes of like what it takes to win from leaders. And one of the things I wanted to ask you both is, what do you think it takes to win at the moment in FMCG marketing? With the cost of living, I speak to a lot of people in brand marketing, and there's discussions around, like you said, Liz, inflation and budgets being cut and basket spend down on certain categories. But there's always winners. There's always losers. What does it take at the moment to win in FMCG in that marketing space?
I mean, I think tenacity is a big one at the moment. I think you need to just kind of stick at it. I think when the macro environment's really challenging, you need to be able to take a bit of a step back and remind yourself of the importance of brand building and the defense of the marketing investment and your longer term goals, and not look too short term. I think FMCG companies need to recognise that their brand is a really valuable asset, and therefore it needs investment, and really understand that long term payback that comes from advertising investment. But I'd say you also need a little bit of flexibility. So you need to be able to react to the market. So if there's promotions coming out from competitors, you might need to flex a little bit to keep that competitive advantage in the current marketplace, I think, to just stay on top more than ever before, really.
That's really interesting. You talk there about long-term perspective. What do you think are the foundations of a great brand that allow you to deliver that long-term perspective for a company?
I think for a brand, you need a clear purpose and a clear identity. So you need to be clear on what the benefit is that your brand gives to consumers, or another way of looking at it is like, what's the problem that your product solves for consumers, or like, how's the world a better place for having your brand in it? And when you're really clear on that, I think everything else falls out of it. And you just need to then be very consistent and also quite choiceful, not try and do everything at once, because unless you've got enormous budgets, that's never going to be possible, and you're going to spread yourself too thin. I think focusing and being choiceful, I mean, that's what strategy is all about, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What when it comes to like the creative side of thing, like I guess unleashing a brand's potential, you've got the right attributes of the mentality to build a brand, you've got the right foundations. What are the ingredients of great creative, like, and how do you take those and then build around a brand that's got the right foundations?
Great creative really should always answer three questions. This is the way we talk about it in the agency. Is it right for the brand? Can it capture the imagination of the audience? And is it different? Great creative also gets noticed. It's entertaining, it's memorable, it makes you feel something, and as a result, it's effective. Questions like, does your brand instantly come to mind? Does it make people have a good emotional reaction? And do people recognize your brand assets quickly? Brands that have a strong sense of their own purpose and regularly deliver work with all three of those, they're the ones that tend to build. And the Soreen, like we've been talking about, the Soreen pick you up moment is a moment of joy in your day. So we wanted the advertising to be as joyful too, really. And emotional advertising, as we all know, it's just such a no-brainer when it comes to effective advertising. You've really got to make people feel something and really care about you. People don't walk around thinking, I love advertising, I hope I see loads of it today.
Yeah.
They love TikToks and they love YouTubers and they love chatting with the mates. So, we're really competing with culture, and that's tough.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Competing for that, I guess, share of attention with other kind of platforms. But what always gets me is with the kids, like the things that give them the most earworm, it's 50-50 between tunes their mates show them or adverts. And for me, it just shows the staying power of good advertising. If it can make the kids smile, and they're on about it, and I'll say, what's that again? Show me that again. And then I remember it as well. So you sort of get the whole family on it. So I just find that fascinating, because sometimes I'll chat to people, particularly very, very digitally focused, and there's almost a view that, everything's just paid acquisition online, and it really isn't, especially when it comes to brand, long term. It's about that kind of resonance, isn't it, in your psyche, that, like you said, does it spark that, oh yeah, recognition, I associate this with that brand, it's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
What's the way that you can assess a great brand plan and kind of campaigns around that? How do you kind of assess them? Because I suppose any business at the moment, they want good ROI, don't they? They want to understand where the money's gone, what it's doing. But I guess if you're taking a long-term perspective, it might be that there's a meandering path sometimes to assess the impact of a good plan and campaign. Can you sort of break that down to us? How do you assess a really good brand plan and then a good campaign as well, sort of commercially?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess we conduct brand tracking every year, usually twice a year. So we basically go out and ask questions around kind of awareness, consideration, trial, and then we've got things like key image statements we'll track ourselves against. So it might be like, how tasty do people think we are, how innovative do they think we are, like various different measures. So we'll look at that, like I say, every year, twice a year. But then we also, probably every 3 years, look at marketing mix modeling. And obviously that's an investment, but it's a really key investment to be able to then demonstrate payback to stakeholders. So that's where obviously you get a third party to take lots of data and model it and understand, when they strip out the effects of things like sales promotions and competitor activity and weather and all those different factors, what is the advertising actually delivering on its own? And I think that is a brilliant way of demonstrating to shareholders that advertising really does pay back, and that's what we've seen through all of our kind of research.
That's really interesting. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's quite a rigorous framework then. That's fascinating. I guess coming on to Multi then and his adventures on TV, how's that performed for you, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, so it's quite early to have a lot of results, because obviously it's a long-term brand building campaign, so we look to see longer term effects, and it's only literally just come off air a couple of days ago. However, what we have seen are some really strong performance indicators. So for example, on Google Trends, you can see a massive spike and also sustained peak in people searching for Soreen since the ad's gone out. So literally, if you look in July, there was virtually nobody searching for Soreen, and then August and September we've got sustained high searches. So that's just people that are interested in the brand again. That's what that demonstrates. And we've also seen increased visits to our website. So again, people trying to find out more about us. But more encouraging still is we've seen a really good upturn in sales over the last few weeks. So like I say, next year we will conduct marketing mix modeling, which will go back in time and look at the effectiveness specifically, and we'll measure the campaign effectiveness, like I say, over time. But at the moment, we're really pleased with how it seems to be performing with our early measures.
Nice. That's really exciting. That's great. And I guess just thinking about advice for people listening and watching, everyone's really interested in how they can kind of upweight their career, build it. And one of the questions we get a lot from people that sort of discover our content, say early stages of their careers, actually, what does it take to start a career in FMCG, to put in the right foundations? Could you both sort of just unpack for us, what your advice would be for people at the beginning of their careers, and what you would recommend they need to do to start well in their career in FMCG?
I guess from my point of view, that would be getting into the type of creative company that, that works on FMCG brands. I think you've just got to be really passionate about it. And I got into this industry through persistence more than anything else. I was a bit of a nuisance. I guess the background to that is I always really, I grew up in a world of TV and music videos and all that kind of stuff. So all I ever really wanted to do was ideas. So FMCG seemed like a really good, a good world for that. And I guess, I guess it's not that much different now, really. I found the creative companies that I really wanted to work at, approached them, tried to get work placements and experience, basically stalked people until they gave me a job. And and I would say try and just get into a place that is good, that's got a good ethos and good people, or at least it's not an industry where there's absolutely tons and tons of jobs available, but if you can work with really good people, take what you can from really good people and move on, and all the stuff really that anyone would generally say to you is, be super passionate about it, listen, keep an open mind, and for my job is all about just soaking up popular culture as much as you can, and work so hard. I just don't think you can underestimate that last one, really. So.
Yeah, I guess from my side, I'd say there's lots of great graduate trainee programs offered by brands, but I'd also recommend the route that I took, which was to start out in an agency and actually then get to work on a variety of different pieces of business and then decide where you want to specialize. So, I mean, this isn't specifically FMCG, but I worked on kind of leisure brands, government business, European business, and FMCG, and then decided over that time which is the area that most interests me. And I think that's quite a good way of giving you a broad spectrum of what's available and what might interest you. I mean, my degree was very academic. I did English, Lit and Spanish, so I didn't do anything business focused. But I knew I wanted to do something really creative, and that was the only thing that I understood at the time. So I just kind of got myself into an ad agency and then took it from there. And I think, if you love brands, I think like you say, you'll find a way to get yourself in somehow. I mean, obviously you can go and do work placements now for like a week or a couple of weeks, and it might be unpaid, but that's invaluable on your CV when you then go and apply for a job.
That's great advice. Yeah, I was literally having a chat with somebody today actually, who's looking to a friend of a friend who's looking to get into the space, and I gave him some similar advice and just said, look, just find a good bunch of people that you really respect, in a company that kind of resonates, and just be persistent. Like Gary said, just stalk them a bit. And third time that you approach them in a year, as long as you're working on something else and you still got a reason to be in touch, look, have you got anything for me? You probably will knock down an opportunity with them. I've seen so many people get into the companies they want just by sheer bloody mindedness. But like you both said, you've got to have that passion, haven't you? And I think a lot of people get a little bit hung up too early on about salary, job title, what's the exact career path laid out, and it's almost the wrong question. The real question is like, why do I want to be doing this? What's the kind of driving force behind it? Because I think that's what everyone resonates with, isn't it? If somebody's raw, they're uncut talent, you've almost got nothing to prove yourself on other than your sheer passion and energy. So I think that's what I'm always looking out for as a recruiter. Anyway, that's my 2 pence. But I guess flipping it on its head, for people that are say middle stage of their career, maybe they're in a good company, that they're in brand, or they may be in an agency space, they're working some cool brands, but for whatever reason they're just losing their mojo a bit, they just feel like the wheels are spinning. Have you got any advice for them on how to kind of get that mojo back, how to kind of get out of a rut? What would you recommend for people that just maybe feel like they're plateauing and they just need something to get the spark going again?
I mean, I'd say go back and remind yourself what it is you enjoyed in your career, so you can remember what it is. Because I love my job. I don't have that Sunday night feeling. I love everything about my job, and that's what you want to be doing, isn't it? Because you spend so much time at work. So remind yourself what it is you loved in the first place about the career you love now, and try and do more of it, and try and find a route to doing more of it. And I'd also say seek advice from any experts, any mentors in the business, any leaders, any life coaches. Just try and get yourself a bit of perspective. I think sometimes you just need to take a step back, because you can be too close to it and not be able to kind of get that perspective.
Yeah, I really think that is very easy to, because you're thinking all the time, and and it's the sort of industry really where there's quite a lot of time pressures. You have to come up with things in very short spaces of time, and it's the kind of thing really that you can certainly feel those pressures. I think as a creative, I look at the situation in the same way. I'd try and solve a creative problem. If it's a certain task or a project that you're working on, I think it's probably just to try and gain perspective on it by stepping away from it, looking at it from a different direction, and then almost looking at it again from the same way. And I mentioned this earlier about working with good people. You can't underline that enough. It is absolutely everything. The more great people you surround yourself with, the easier it is when you do, hit a brick wall or need inspiration or motivation. So yeah, I'd say that's a really important one for me.
Great, that's brilliant advice. Thank you. Any books, resources, I don't know, networking opportunities, podcasts that you'd recommend people, listen to, watch, consume to, keep them fresh, keep them engaged, and I guess, make sure they're close to that reason why they love their job?
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people that listen to this will have already read How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp, but it's a firm recommendation. I would say anyone that hasn't read it, it is a really key title. I've also enjoyed a few behavioural economics books in my time, but I haven't read any recently. But I thought Predictably Irrational was good, and Nudge, just interesting, kind of give you a bit of idea of how consumers behave. And I'd also say when it comes to courses, I know we've sent a few of our team on Mark Ritson's Marketing Mini MBA course, and that's highly recommended too.
A lot of my podcasts tend to be about football, so I won't recommend those. But I am listening. Listening. Also good, yeah, but more stressful. And I'm sort of listening to Get Behind the Billboard at the moment. That's a really good one. And I don't read anywhere near as much as I should. I would be much better off for it. But I do look at a lot of brand creative work. So D&AD is, if you're a creative, it's the Bible really for looking at the best work in the world. And then there's lots of other industry sort of platforms like that, which are a Creative Review, Contagious, David Reviews. Too many to list really, but those are the kind of things I really look at. And we're really lucky because we have, as part of TBWA, we have really good internal resources for stuff like that too. So yeah, nice. Soak it up, I'd say.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Yeah. Well, look, thank you so much for everything you've shared. It's been really educational for me. I really enjoyed it, and appreciate you just kind of lifting the bonnet on what's going on in the world of Soreen, and also just great advice, really grounded advice on career development within FMCG in the agency space. If you're watching, if you're listening, please do reach out to Liz and Gary. Thank them for their time, thank them for their insights. Anyone that comes on the show does it to invest in careers, and that's what this podcast is all about. It's just giving back to the community, investing in people's careers with a bit of insight from people that have trod the path already and know their stuff. Gary, Liz, where can people follow you? And where you tend to be active on social media? I'm guessing LinkedIn probably the best place to find you, is it?
Yeah, exactly. LinkedIn for me.
Yeah, definitely. Same. Instagram as well. I'm a bit of an Instagram fiend as well. So
nice. Just finally, cheeky question: what's your favourite Soreen product, both of you?
I mean, I think it has to be the original malt loaf for me. I mean, I did kind of flirt with apple lunchbox loaves for a while. They were my favourite, but I think I've come back to original malt now. It's just very versatile, lots of toppings. But we have just launched sticky toffee loaf this year in the last few weeks. If you've tried that, go out and try it because it is amazing.
Looking forward to that one. I would probably circle back to the original just because it's so deep rooted. But while my kids were growing up, the banana loaf was just what we all lived on. So yeah, that as well.
Yeah, I'll definitely say an original, but closely followed by banana. That's got a space in my heart. But maybe it's going to get, sort of pushed out by the sticky toffee. I've got to try that. I've not tried that yet, so I'm excited for that.
Definitely. We'll send you some.
But no, that would be lovely. I'll get it on the shelf. There's a little spot actually. I just realised I'm just taking it. I took something down the other day and ate it. I've not replaced it. That's really bad, isn't it? But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And to everyone listening, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Take care.